Awesome. Okay, everybody. Welcome to the kickoff Express TC meeting, February 15th, 2024. We're going to do a quick round of introductions, and then we're going to go through our agenda, which is posted in the chat. So I'll start. I'm Wes Todd. I don't know what we need to include in our introduction, but I work on a bunch of open source stuff. Been around the Express project a little bit, took quite the break, but I'm excited that we're getting things kicked off again. I'll hand it off to Doug, and if we can just like hand it off, the last person who introduced themselves, hand it to somebody else.
All right. My name is Doug Wilson, and I've been on it for a while, and like Wes said, not really sure what else to really include, but I'm glad to see this get together, and really excited for what we can get done and move forward on all this stuff. This is the first time I think we're really getting together ever since it became part of OpenJS specifically. So I think this will be a great future, I think. So I'll hand it off to Blake.
I'm Blake. I've maintained a bunch of different JavaScript, TypeScript libraries and been involved with TypeScript for a while. The main thing I've maintained on Express is the path to regex library. I'll hand it off to Jonathan.
Sorry, I forgot that's me. My name is John Church. Yeah, I was first involved with Express. I guess it must have been like 2017 or something like that. I met Wes at a Node.js contributor summit. He gave a talk about, trying to circle the wagons for Express. I bought in. I was helping with the triage effort. I disappeared for years, basically. I work at Microsoft these days with JavaScript, working on stuff, all et cetera, et cetera. So, happy to see this happening and trying to figure out how I can slot in or, see what's going on. So.
Pick somebody to hand it off.
To Jean or Jean Boulier?
Yeah, Jean, French name, so perfect. So I'm Jean Burlier, or John if you prefer, like I don't really care. Not sure what I can say except almost like you, Jonathan, like I met Wes 2019 in a Node.js in Montreal, basically joined like the triage group, and same old, I would guess. And next one would be Robert.
Thanks, Sean. I'm Robert Kiefer. I maintain a bunch of open source stuff, have done for better part of a decade. I mentioned before I do UUID and MIME, among others. I'm not part of the technical committee. I'm here as an observer because Express has been, as an outside observer, it's been really frustrating seeing how Express has sort of failed to move forward. But I also completely understand how and why as an open source maintainer. So I'm just here to sort of kibitz and throw little brainworms in to encourage the committee to really focus on getting active members. I just want to thank Doug for all the hard work he's done over the years, both here and in the other open source projects, some of which I've interacted with him on. So awesome job, Doug. I will pass it to Ulysses.
Thank you, Robert. So yeah, hello everybody. I'm Ulises Con. I'm based in Spain. I think I have some lag in the video, but I hope the sound is fine. So yeah, basically I joined the triage team just before the pandemic, I think as many of us. And yeah, it was a challenging after that. And currently today I'm working mostly in my open source activity in Node.js. I'm a releaser in Node.js. I'm helping the security working groups and other working groups around. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here and to be part of this big momentum for Express again. So I hope this is going to be in the very good direction. And I pass the ball to Jordan.
Hi. Sorry, I'm in my kitchen making dinner. So I'm Jordan. I maintain too many open source projects, and I'm here, unfortunately, not to volunteer any IC or coding time, but any way that I can be helpful, like in terms of being on the TC or being a repo captain or just providing advice, I'm more than happy to do it. Express is critical to the JavaScript ecosystem, and even if it were to be like responsibly sunset, it would still be in tutorials and Google searches for the next 50 years. So like, it's an even better outcome if it can get reinvigorated and move forward. And also echoing thanks for Doug for all the past work and hopefully future work as well. Oh, and also I do maintain QS, which is a dependency of Express as well. So that's the way in which I've interacted with the Express project in the past. And I will pass it on to who have I not? Rand.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm Rand McKinney. I got involved with Express when Strong Loop and IBM were in the picture, and just on the documentation side, I'm probably the only person here who's not actually a software developer. I'm a technical writer, and I've been writing developer documentation for, well, about 30 years. And yeah, it's been enjoyable to work with Express, although like some of you also, I have kind of dropped off the map for a few years, but I would love to see Express get rolling again. And so yeah, but I'll do whatever I can to to help with that. So let's see who is left. I'm not sure. Are we just going through the attendees? Let's see, Kelvin Omershon.
Hi, Ryan. Hey, everyone. I'm Kelvin. I am the lead maintainer of Sales.js and also the maintainer of the boring JavaScript stack. Sales won't exist without Express, so I'm really excited to be here. I think the tech is stable. And I just want to see it like much more, bugs being fixed and just get better. But in terms of, like getting a little shiny, I think Express is really, really good for what it does. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. And I think I passed it all to Blake. I think Blake, you could go
I
next.
think Dave is the last one.
Okay, Dave. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Dave Welch. I have the good fortune to have gotten to know Jordan a little bit over the last year, and so he clued me into this when it was happening. I don't have a bunch of open source projects that I maintain, but I've sent out a bunch of PRs, usually for like the most annoying things possible because no one wants to do those and they're easiest to jump in on. So, but I love Express. I've always stuck with Express, even though like I know there's other things and some benefits here and there. So as this came around, I was really excited because I can finally give back. I'm CTO of Hero Devs. It's a company that grew out of the Angular JS world, provides long-term support. That's not why I'm here. Cool option. I didn't even think of it until now, actually. But no, just big fan of Express. We use it in our stack too. So happy to help out and drag along the company wherever I can as well too to do so.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so we'll get started on our first agenda item. So the goal of this entire thing here is this first agenda item. Let's reform ideally better than we were when we sort of left off. But at least to really kick things off, I think, the folks here who are on the existing TC kind of have a responsibility, I think, as the existing TC to be the instigators for that. So I just wanted to maybe open the floor a little bit first and just say to the existing folks, do you have anything that has been on your mind about, where we're at, what you'd like to see out of, the next little, bit of time as we get things kicked off? Is there any, concerns you have or anything you want to air around getting this reformed?
Well,
I think personally,
it's like,
sorry, Doug, you can go first.
no, you first, because I want to. I'd rather hear from not me.
Sure. I think part of the reason, I mean, I think I echoed John's comment much earlier, which is just like I stopped contributing due to burnout, not particularly related to Express, but the Express issue count definitely didn't help. The biggest thing on the Express side, I think, that was lacking was direction. I think there just wasn't a clear, like V5, I think was clear, but beyond that, it wasn't really clear like what we do to change APIs or what the API should look like. I played with a bunch of things like that outside of Express, whether we should do that. I didn't end up incorporating any of it back because it just seemed horrible and breaking changes and that kind of thing. But that is the kind of alignment I think we'd need to kick off. Just being clear about like, this is the API we support. If it's the current Express API and we're just working towards that, then that's fine. I've kind of just maintained this little library, assuming it's used the same way in Express forever. But if we're ever changing things, it'd be good to know. And that's my only comment on this, is just like the direction of specifically like the technical side, what it should look like.
Cool. Thanks, Blake. I have actually some similar thoughts too, like, being in there, and I kind of like got started with Express when version 4 was being kicked off, and being involved with it directly. I used it way before that. I started using Node when NPM didn't even exist yet. And so Express was like the first thing. And so I got involved back then, and then 4 existed, and there was a lot of fury around just adding some features and this, that, and the other thing. And then I agree in a way with like, then we're like, all right, we'll Express 5, and there's a bunch of things where it was like, okay, we'll remove these bad decisions. And then I think that's really where, I think a lot of it was like, what is the direction? Just like you're saying, like, even I use Express a lot, and there's APIs I want to change, but then of course it's like, how much do you break things or not break things? Like that's a big, certainly thing that's going to be great to try to fit, decide amongst ourselves. It's actually like, and I had the same thing, like just there's so much stuff going on, and all kinds of different, being like a large project with a lot of users, you have all kinds of help and questions. And like you said, the issue counts are so large. A lot of them not issues, or a lot, are help. And it's just, the project has never really had a good project manager or anything like that, and so it's always been just whatever. And that's allowed it to coast along, certainly with 4. And then for me personally, the biggest, cliff for 5 wasn't just some of the actual like ideas to put into it, but then the few, but kind of like hardcore, some of the breaking things that are in there, it really, especially once, there wasn't really much around, really lost a lot of motivation to, put out something that will like break various tutorials and other things and have a huge influx of people, questions and stuff. It just seemed like, a mountainous thing to really even want to bother with at that point. And so that's why I think like I'm really excited, when Wes kind of reached out, and get people involved, because I think that's really what it's going to need to move forward in general. It's just, we need people, with all the questions. I mean, Express itself, the repo has a lot, but there's a lot of repos and they all have lots of questions. Some of the more popular ones, thank goodness, there's been some folks, popping in there, like Express Session is a really very popular one with like 1 million questions all the time. But yeah, I don't know. That's just a little bit of my initial thoughts and especially excited about, getting folks together and, people just in charge of different things and, figuring out what's the, path forward and getting a good direction nailed down, which there's been some work, as you've probably seen, just on what Wes posted in our discussions and stuff. And so I like it. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Rand, did you have anything you wanted to add, or can I sort of circle back to the more tactical?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So that was why Jean and I made this list of things. I think we both recognize the same thing you both just said, which is direction is the only big thing we were missing, is like getting everybody going in the same way and having an actual plan. So we roughed out a plan, very rough. I don't know if if you read the thing, like we did this over a bottle of wine in when we were together, and it was incredibly rough, but we posted it as is because it is not our decision. It is a group project here. We gotta get all together and figure out what those details are. So we wanted to propose something just to get the conversation started. And that's what is in that list. I think to go from this really rough list to actually making progress and getting these things, released is going to be where a lot of the, the difficulty is. Frankly, I think, unfortunately, because of the state of things, actually getting over the hump to get back to like a maintainable level for the project is actually going to be quite difficult. And so I don't want to just because we're all here and saying, yeah, let's do something that, that's not actually that valuable. I think we need to turn this very quickly into really concrete action items that we take effectively immediate action on. I mean, if we have to do what we did before, which was sort of slow and steady, I think we're not going to be able to get ourselves out of that or over that hump. And so what I really want to focus on when we made this agenda with this top item is the goal of reforming the TC. And when I said opening new seats is to get the people who are willing to help drive the plan in place. There's a ton of technical work and we need a lot of IC level, contributions. But in order to make that happen, those people need somebody who can go and click the yes, we approve it button and merge and release, right? And ideally, that is the TC for some of the more critical components and the repo captains for the subcomponents. And so if we give people a lot more freedom at those lower, subcomponent levels, it frees folks like Doug up to really be focused on what are the last few things that need to be done before it goes out the door, or whoever. It might, Doug, I'm not trying to volunteer you, but you sort of volunteered yourself by doing this work for many years. So I'm sorry, but I'm happy to be there. So I want to first raise my hand and say I am happy to help be some of the PM work. I say that very loosely. That some of this, putting this list together, I'm happy to do that. I definitely won't be able to do that part alone. So I was hoping today to also, nominate 2 people to join the TC. Those are the 2 people who helped work through this before we posted the issue. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask if we think that the current process for the TC is good enough. Because if it's not, then I'd like to, have that discussion before I recommend Ulysses and Jean on as new TC members. So does anybody think that we need, is the nomination process good enough? Do we think we need to change the governance to make this more effective? Because it kind of fell flat previously, right? At the time, I think Doug and I were the only 2 regular attendees at the meetings we were having. Rand, I think you were in and out depending on, stuff, but 2 is definitely not enough. So do we need to add language to I don't want to say require, but strongly encourage TC members to be available and be involved? Do we need a more formal process around, like, you know, how someone becomes a member or becomes not a member of the TC? Like, what do we think about the governance as it stands today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does have to do work on. To be fair, I think Linus was at most of them for sure. So he actually, but yes, you are correct. Is that in the end, you know, it was just like mainly the three of us as the actual TC members who would show on the actual regular. But I agree though. I think we need to, you know, I know it's just by nomination, so I think that generally works. Probably like, because I don't know, I'm just trying to think through there. Like, because yeah, I agree though. We need to probably have some way to like make sure that there's, you know, on the to be a you know, on the TC that there's actually, you know, stays active, right? Because I know we had some people fall off and it was supposed, you know, we just kind of like did nothing, to be fair. But you know, certainly that was a failing of it before. Just doing nothing, taking no real action, like even you know, changing the status of anybody and stuff like that. And I think part of that, like at least for me personally, didn't really do that because of course, you know, it's like, well, what if this person does want to be on it? You know what I mean? We didn't have any rules. So I think that is certainly, I think, something that's a good action item to take away is probably to actually have some clear defined thing of what it means to like be inactive, thus enabling, you know, the other active TC members to just automatically remove the person from the TC without anybody's like feelings being hurt or anything like that. You know, no worry about it because it's just defined in there. I think that would be a big help for sure. I don't know. That was the main thing I definitely know is like immediate. We should definitely add to it is just how to, you know, define if you're active and, you know, so we can just keep it tidy.
Yeah, I
And
mean, can we just define like a period of time, like if you haven't shown up, if
yeah,
there's been
exactly.
meetings
It
and
could
you
be
haven't shown
simple.
up, yeah, something like that. And then there might be, I don't know, to be fair, we could say, you know, we could, if that's the case, then you try and reach out to them directly, and if they don't respond, then that person is dropped, and so they've been given, you know, some opportunity to respond. Some simple process like that. I don't think it has to be too complicated.
Right. I know. Oh, that was I just thought of that too, is like, because I was also thinking the other way. How can we, and I think that's really almost like Wes's initial question for, you know, the nomination, does it work? Is maybe we should have some kind of way where we like force the TC to nominate a new person. You know what I mean? So Wes, like, I don't know if there's like a minimum, like we could put like a minimum number of active, and like once we're below the minimum, like the TC should like basically like needs to nominate someone no matter, you know what I mean? Because the whole time there was only the few of us. There were non-TC people showing up on the regular, you know? So clearly I think someone could easily have been nominated to take those active spots, you know? So, and that would have just made sure that it stayed with a certain number of people. So I don't know.
Yes, I agree with that. I just want to call out, we got a couple raised hands. So
Yeah. So,
Yep.
I mean, I think there's other examples of projects that have very large governing bodies because it's a status symbol in some ways, and there's not a clean way to get people off the active list. And that causes a lot of problems in the governance of those projects. So I think all of those ideas are great. I think it should be I don't even think you have to wait for much of a response, like 24 hours or something, because then you say something that if someone is removed for inactivity and within a week they come back and say, actually, something came up and I'm busy, or within a month or whatever, you just summarily re-add them, right? And then similar, like in addition, you would say, yeah, there should be a minimum, but there should also be a maximum. Like you know, maybe you have 5 people normally, there should never be more than 10, there should never be less than 3. I don't know, however you wanted to do it. Because that also kind of helps incentivize triaging who is the actual folks that need to be on the TC instead of creating a too many cooks kind of situation, which I've seen happen.
Hey, this is Dave. I was just going to say too, and I'm offering this as someone who is not caught up on all the things and been here a long time, so sometimes the fresh eyes are helpful there. I think in conjunction with trying to figure out whether you should reform like the, you know, kind of the structure of it, the governance of it, as well as like what the actual agenda are, I would say that it seems most effective, and I feel like most people will rally around the cause when there's actual momentum and movement and things to do with it. So as much as it's important to find the right structure, especially going forward, having a direction and having a timeline to finish the rights, you know, to define what that right structure is for, you know, Express Team 2.0, 5.0, whatever we call it, right? Going forward is a productive way of doing it. I do also, I put this in the chat, but I very much agree or believe that having a built-in level of rotation in any sort of leadership body or committee and these kind of things actually helps more people get involved, especially if it sets a pattern where someone might be on the TC only for like 6 months. Like I'm lucky if I can know the next 6 months of my life out, because I feel like things change so much between kids and job and everything else. So knowing that I won't be blackballed for showing up and doing it and then leaving if it doesn't make sense, or having an easy way to replace myself, makes it more approachable. So just want to share those thoughts.
Kelvin, if you want to talk.
Yeah, thank you. So I think in terms of long-term sustainability for TC or people on the core, what we need, I've seen this in other ecosystem, are people who in one way or the other directly are using Express. Because I think that's sort of like, because you have skin in the game, right? Like, for example, I've been showing up since what, 2018 for Sales.js, for something people think is already dead. But because I'm using it, I have a community around it, I'm still here, right? So I feel like we need to identify people. Are you shipping Express at work? Are you maintaining a project directly that the interests align with Express? That way you sort of have more context in terms of like, okay, what do you want to do for the framework? Because I think that's this sort of extraction from real world use case. Okay, I've been using Express in this place at work, it breaks in so and so ways to real customers, and we need to fix this, we need to add this. I think those sort of things because Express is unopinionated, it's very low level, so it doesn't really need too much of like the moving parts, but it needs to be stable for consumers, like people that are building on top of it. There are a lot of frameworks and things using Express. So I think those sort of people, either shipping it to end users for like APIs or building on top of it, should make up a key part of the TC. That way we have real context as to the usage of Express. That's just what I think. Thank you.
Awesome. So I will circle this around then and make a proposal. So I agree with everything everybody said. And actually, that was some of the stuff we had talked about, you know, beside this, you know, meeting. So I think I completely agree. We should amend it to have a minimum of 3. If we can shoot for 5, I think that would be great. But we're starting where we're starting. Now we have a lot of people on this meeting. If everybody on this meeting is going to be able to continue to show up, then obviously we could hit 5. But I don't want to, you know, I don't think we want to set that. Maybe we start with 3 and once we get going, we up it to 5. I think that would be fine. Jordan, I'm fine with setting a maximum, but honestly, I think we just need to get the minimum first. But I think if we're going to amend the governance, we might as well do it all at once. So
yeah, I mean, I was thinking it's a problem that won't happen for a while, but it's a nice thing eventually in there to help ensure rotation and make sure it's seen as an active role and not as a status symbol of any kind, or a symbol of power or whatever.
Yeah. And then, so Kelvin, I'm very glad you said what you said about users. So I was also, one of the things John and I talked about was like, maybe we need a official role for a community member who maybe isn't even as like involved in shipping the product itself, but like who can just inform whether that aligns with the way that they use the product. That one's a little bit more iffy, but one of the things that I think is key that we probably need is somebody from Node.js, like who can represent Node.js in these discussions. Because one of the reasons why this even got started was Matteo kept on coming to me because I was at these events going, hey, there's an issue for removing Express from SitGym. Hey, Express depends on some core things that we'd love to change in Node Core. How can I make that happen? And I kept on being like, I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry. And I'm not saying it should be Matteo, but I think there should be some sort of formal recommendation that we need to have more input from Node core members. If they're trying to change something that we're blocking, we need to figure out how to work better there. I actually started that web server frameworks team back in like 2020, specifically to try to figure that out. Like how could we have a group in Node Core that's made up of some folks from the web server frameworks and like be a little bit better communicating or something. That sort of died. Then Jean has started to kick it off again recently. So it sounds like we're building some momentum there. So maybe just participation in that is enough and we don't need it on the Express TC. I'm not sure I have a strong opinion there, but I do think so. And what I was going to say is a recommendation. I think setting a minimum seems like a perfectly, like we could submit a PR for this like tomorrow as the governance, and all we need is, I think, 24. No, we need, there's some guidelines in the doc. Is it 28 hour, 48 hours, sorry. And nobody opposing it. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Just to give for time zones and a day.
So if we're good on that, then I would happily draft something up unless somebody else feels really strongly about taking the lead on drafting up the wording there. And then we can just hash things out in the PR, make sure we're aligned on the language. Is there anything else do we want to do something like official, like representation from the community or Node.js? Does that, like, I'm sort of on the fence on
yeah,
that.
because I'm trying to think of what that would look like in there, because they could just be on the TC, or if you mean like, have some kind of extra like seat thing that's like a, because I do agree, like, certainly regardless of that is like, we definitely like, yeah. And especially once we get more people, right, hopefully we'll be able to connect more, because definitely there's, I'm sure everybody can agree, like the Express project does not intend to block anything that happens in Node. But at the same time, like, we also need to know what exactly the problems are in the first place. And there just hasn't, so having like some kind of communication channel to know even what they are, because I think right now, I can tell you for a fact that the few years, I think it's mostly been a, SitGem, as you mentioned, is kind of like, as far as I could tell, and I do, the Node.js repo is so noisy, like I can't even like watch it. And like, so it doesn't help too with not good communication is like nothing really breaks, because they kind of like just make sure it doesn't break. But then of course we don't know then what they wanted to break or something either. So, it's kind of like a weird thing. But yeah, like you said, I don't know if it, perhaps that should be some kind of official seat, quote unquote, thing. You can think of it as probably like, if you were to call it something, it could be generic, right? It doesn't have to be like Node. Sales.js is a good example, right? Like, just like I said, they build on top of Express. So certainly, I'm sure projects like that would love to have some kind of thing like that, right? And it doesn't mean they have to necessarily attend all the time, but also if there is like if there is some kind of point of contact, is actually more akin to like what would make sense, right? Because it's like, okay, well, we just have it on a list like this person is like sales.js because they're, there, and like this person is Node.js, the kind of like, the both what we consume and what have, heavily consume us and really care, and like gives us a pathway to like at least just say, hey, be aware of this, or hey, we realize that this thing is a problem, I don't know. But yeah, I could see that as like, at the very least, to have knowledge of who these people are, so it can help us communicate better between these projects.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So maybe, Ulysses, you want to go ahead?
I was about to say that on the chat, but maybe it's faster by talking. So yeah, I'm one of the Node.js releasers, and also I'm one of the Node.js infra administrators. So the parts that are more friction with Express, between Node and Express, I'm more or less aware of. So like canneling the gold mine and so on. So I can be the bridge until we define, how we manage that with more relevant. Yeah, I'm not the most expert one at all in core parts like HTTP evolution and so on, but yeah, we have the web frameworks team for that. So I think we can be covered for now on that gap.
Okay, I'm good with that. So then what we'll do is we'll make a PR to the governance doc that lays out the minimum, the maximum. We'll add some language around people timing out of the group. So from inactivity, and adding, we will directly contact them, how we will directly contact them, and how long before they don't respond that we take them off. I will try to include, again, I'm volunteering, but I'm happy to let somebody else do this because there's probably a lot of things. So if anybody wants to raise their hand and draft this up, I don't need to be the one to do it. But somebody's got to get assigned, so I'll take the bullet if that's necessary. Okay, so I'll draft that up, probably not tonight, but hopefully tomorrow. We'll try. Oh yeah, go ahead, Kelvin.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, is there sort of like an Express Slack or Discord? It could
Yes.
definitely help with the discussion async.
Yeah, so we do have that in the OpenJS Foundation Slack. I think we should stick with that because they provide it and it gives us a little bit more connection with the foundation folks. One of the things I've found a lot of value is just like seeing what people are talking about and being able to ping in, the folks on the CPC, or we want to make, we want to make a blog announcement saying we're going to ignite things, like we can ping in Kylie and she'll like help us get the blog going. So like I think that's better than a Discord personally. So if everybody's good with, if you don't know how to join there, there's it's on the OpenJS website. And then I was going to mention too, Doug and I maybe were chatting about maybe we also would end up making a private one. There's sometimes some issues that are a little bit sensitive, especially with the spam stuff that's been going on and people being blocked. Having those kind of discussions in public is probably not super ideal. But we can probably orchestrate that offline. We did spend quite a bit of time. Can we wrap up the first item so that we don't go over time? Are we good with this PR? Everybody's good? No opposition? Okay, cool. Okay, second item, repo captains. So this issue is currently locked, but I think, and I'll maybe hand off to Doug, that it is locked for historical reasons and that is not maybe necessary anymore. So I'm wondering if we could, I propose we unlock it, address any last issues, and then merge it. But Doug, I don't know if you have comments.
No, yep. Yeah, I did look over the PR before this meeting, and so I concur. So I actually didn't even realize it was even locked until I actually looked at it. But yeah, I did skim through it as well, the contents of it. And I didn't really notice any major issues, though, I skimmed through it. So I mean, it's been a while, but I went to the view changes and actually just skimmed because there's comments that show they're unresolved, and then they show that they weren't referenced to the current changes. So I'd like, okay, well, what actually is the changes anymore? So yeah. So, anyways, so that's a quick overview. Is I think that I think everything's resolved in there or not. I don't know, and I don't know if you want to. And the other thing I'll add is I don't know if you want to just use that same one, or should we just make a new PR and then, so because there's a lot of comments on that thing. It took me a while. I didn't even read through all of the comments because there was just too much to even recall. I just read through the contents of the actual change. So that's up to you. I don't really care either way.
I would be happy to go through and clean up the comments and actually like close them as resolved or whatever. If that,
okay.
I'd rather use the existing one only just because that feels good, and I don't know.
That's fine.
Suresh
Yeah.
to participate or is watching, but he'll get a notification and that might make him feel at least a little bit good at some point. I don't know. But I'm happy to clean it up and stuff. I just want to make sure that we weren't like there wasn't anything remaining that we were blocking on before I did that.
Nope. Yeah, I think when I skimmed over it, and like I said, it's hard to remember because it's so long ago. I think really that was the wording of it makes sense to me, and all that stuff. I think the only thing I could even recall that might have been like sort of meh about it was the way to manage it was that we were gonna like manage it within the main repo of the code repo versus like some kind of like exterior one, which then of course the commits in and out of that I don't know how Node.js does it. I was thinking about that because I know that they have things where people are adding and removing their name from, and I have no idea if that's in their main code repo or not. But that was the only thought I had. But like the actual contents of reading it were perfectly fine. So, anyways, that's my thoughts on that.
I feel the same way about the triager process. I'm not actually sure I like that the triager process is a PR on Node or an issue on the Express repo itself. Feels like we should move that off into the discussions repo or an ad. Like I think Node.js does most of that through the admin repo.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I know at least that one is at least nice because right now it's just they make an issue versus like constantly pull requesting into a file and then just managing more of that. At least within the same as the code, because like I said, I don't know how Node.js does it, but last time I even saw anything, I swear I thought there was some kind of weird repo that they were doing it in, but I just don't recall, as I don't really keep track of the Node.js stuff closely anymore.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say like for Node.js, it really depends. Like if for co-contributor, I think it's a main repository, then you have that for every like working group, it's a different repository, and maybe the TSC is another repository or something like that.
Gotcha.
I'm
because yeah,
rather different, but I do think that the triager being in the main repo probably isn't. So when we talk about I think there's a bunch of conversations in the chat about like the reasons why people participate, and there is some interesting dynamics around, I don't know if we want to call it prestige, but I think that was the word folks used in the chat, where like landing that commit on Express is pretty valuable to some people for whatever reason. I don't, not here to judge. But so we should be careful about how the process interacts with that. Like, so for Node, I imagine that's part of the reason why it's in the main core repo and not in the admin repo. And I don't know if that provides value. I'm super indifferent on it. I think we could have it in there or not, and it doesn't matter too much to me. If we're going to change the governance though, before, like, do we think we need to change that before we land this PR, or do we think we're all right to land this PR and then edit after? I guess is the real tactical immediate question.
Right.
I'd say
And
you
I
guys should be
agree.
biased to action. I think that's what I think that's what you guys have said you want so far. So I'm going to remind you that you want to be biased to action. You can always PR and change things later. You guys just discussed changing governance. So I'd say land it, and people can open issues if they want to change it.
Yep, I agree. I think we should just land it. And I know the only other thing I'll mention is, I know we have a lot of things that we want to do, like, do this stuff, get 5 moved forward, and all this other things. We'll have to figure out what we can shake out any conflicts with the way the release process works and the rebasing and all that kind of stuff, or maybe we want to change how all that works in order for them to coexist in the same repo. We can shake that out as we go forward, but getting like the project captains in there, I think, is more valuable anyways.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if we're all good on bias to action, then I'll clean up the issues. We'll get this merged. I also realized I moved on without doing my formal proposal to add John and Ulysses as TC members. Can we do that? Because that was supposed to be part of agenda item 1. So does anybody, I think the processes I ask, does anybody oppose? So we've got 2 new TC members. Welcome to the Express TC. Looking forward to making all this great work happen with you. Cool.
Hooray.
Does that mean we're at 5? Does that mean we're on this meeting with actually 5 active members? We did it, team. Just kind of kidding, but it is important, and it's awesome to see this moving forward. So cool. Okay, so being conscientious of time, Doug, also, if you need to leave, by all means, go enjoy your dinner. But we do need to figure out number 3, which is how we're going to add the foundation accounts to all the stuff. So I think that's more of just an administrative task. We could probably even do it async if we wanted to, as long as everybody's good with us doing it like in the OpenJS Slack.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I'm pretty adept at helping with. So, Doug, I think there's a lot of packages that you're the only owner on, but I also think that you're the owner on all of them. So my proposal is that I create an org, I make the 5 TC members just referenced owners on it. Doug adds all the packages, I'll set up all the teams and make sure all the right people are invited to it. And then once that is all set up, I will remove myself from the org, and then you can do whatever you like. Does that seem like it would be helpful?
Yeah, as far as and like you said, I'm 99.9% sure that I am on all of them. And yes, because I had over the years, when someone has been away from it for like years on end, I removed them. I think there's a whole bunch where I am the only one on it. So, yeah, just let me know what you want me to.
I thought you owned the Express org as well, right?
Oh,
so you asked me about that, and I had no clue. Though earlier today I logged into my NPM, and apparently there is an Express org. So we actually have apparently 4 orgs in NPM. There's an org called Pillar.js, an org called JSHTP, an org called Express.js, and an org called Express. So I guess we'll do what we want to do.
In that case, Doug, would you have any time in the next day or 4 to hop on a call with me, and then we can either you can give me access so that I can do stuff while we're on the call, or I can just coach you through doing it, and then you probably already know how to do it anyway, but just that way we can make sure it gets done with 2 people involved. So what's the best way to reach out to you to coordinate that?
Yeah, if you're on the OpenJS Slack, just DM me.
I am.
I have it on my phone, so that'll be the easiest.
Sounds great. I will do that this evening.
Awesome. Do we, one thing I realized you said we'd add the folks on the call, but we have Linus, and is Linus the only other person who is an active TC member? I think that is not on the call today. So it's actually 6 of us.
I'll ping
assuming
you
I
as
know-
well, Wes,
Okay.
on the same Slack, and just make sure that I have the correct list of who should be the owners on the org, like before I have that meeting set up with Doug, so that we can work that out offline.
Okay, sounds good. Then that means we have addressed the most critical of issues. We're close to time. Do we want to try to quickly talk about the work streams or the OpenJS audit? Or do we want to maybe punt those and call that our first like tactical meeting? Look, or we don't even have to do it on a meeting. We just do it in issues if we wanted to. Not sure how folks feel about that. Ulysses?
Yeah, I will say if we can maybe do a short introduction of both topics, that would be great. So everybody's in the context and we can later on decide, if we want to discuss offline or just in the next topic, or in the next meeting.
Okay. Jean, do you want to pull up your doc
Yep.
maybe? I think the best.
Yeah, I will do that. And up.
So
Yeah.
the first critical work stream, I think, is your top one, which is the new TC and defining the role. So I think we're good on that. I'm taking point on it to open up a PR to add language to the governance. Let's see, do we have anything else in here? So we didn't necessarily address all of these things, but I think we are good to make the first PR, and we can probably talk about other roles and delegating things later. I don't think we have to do that up front.
Yeah. I think the best, we can go quickly through all of them, but I will open like issue tomorrow for each of them. This way we'll be able to discuss. I will just to not remove some of them, like I will even put the first one, but like I guess it's done now. But that way we'll be able to go through everything and a full list of every, let's say, subpart. So we do a new TC committee, defined technical committee role, which include the specific role, for example, captain or working group. Also, like you discussed earlier, Doug, and a lot of people there, like other project being represented in cross-project session, but also having feedback and like exchange with people from the community on people that use Express and people and how and tool or solution that Express use to run properly. Like this way, we already discussed that. On this one, I don't know, like I put also here a full list of, do we need to update the code of conduct to update your charter, bylaw, and everything linked to that, basically. Link with the OpenJS Foundation, security rules. Like I don't think the repository like Express, for example, and use a GitHub feature for security. I didn't check, to be honest, so.
So on the security front, this is part of why I put the audit on there. Actually, maybe Jordan, are you able to speak a little bit to what the audit would entail?
Yeah, so I did it with NVM. Basically, OSTIF selects a firm. It may be the same one that I have, or maybe a different one. And I had a few calls with them to try and kind of ramp them up on the rough organization of the project, give them my sense of like the security attack surface and like what I'm concerned about, and talk about how people install it and blah, blah, blah. And then they dived into stuff, and then about 4 or 5 times they sent me a draft of their like security report or just like mentioned some issues they'd found. And out of the 4 issues they found, 2 of them were nothing burgers and 2 of them I fixed. And nothing burgers in the sense of like, arguably they were vulnerabilities, but not something that I cared about. And so like, I basically was like, I'm not going to fix it, and here's why. But the 2 ones that were higher severity, I did make changes to mitigate. And it was a pretty smooth process. And then they allowed me to basically steal their threat model text and put it in the project repo so that I could get that checkbox for the OpenSSF CII best practices badge. And because I had no idea how to write one. And yeah, it was a really pleasant process, and it didn't really take that much of my time. That will probably be very different on a more complex project, a larger project, and especially a project like Express that deals with user input. So, I'm not trying to paint too rosy a picture of how easy it's going to be, but they were very flexible and communicative, and it was really easy to work with them.
Awesome. And so for this one, also, Ulysses, you've also done you've opened a couple of issues that I think fit under this umbrella. So I think probably what we'd want to do is pretty soon. So for the reason why this is time sensitive is they mentioned that there is a slot to do this soon. And so if we are willing to or want to, we'd be able to do it, I think, like next month, starting next month or something. It's a bit fast for the fact that we're just starting to get things rebooted. So I was quite concerned. And I absolutely said I cannot say yes to that. We need to have the whole group discussion. But this should probably be one of the higher like priority discussions we have next, I would think. So Ulysses, I mentioned
Yeah.
you.
Oh.
I don't know if you want
I
to.
was gonna say I agree because as I think I told Wes, like just as you guys even mentioned in front, tutorials they talk about Express, and it'll probably be like that for eternity, right? And as I told Wes, like one of the biggest burdens I had over all these years is these seemingly endless nothing burger security reports. Endless. From people who have zero clue what even JavaScript is. I'm not even kidding, you know. We really like so having like a like was mentioned, a threat model, much more well-defined thing, being able to do that, I think will be such a big help because that is definitely, like I said, especially because 99.9, there has been some valid ones, very rare, but they do exist. And it's by no means I'm saying there's nothing wrong. And it's just there's just so much to triage. And having a threat model too helps us and things like that with the security thing, because just like I think was mentioned with like there's this, prestige with like having a commit, there is this whole thing about having CVEs with your name on it. And so people get really upset when you're trying to tell them that it's not a vulnerability and they can't have their CVE. And yeah, that is definitely, I think, up there, right? Because, thinking about just in general, I think it was mentioned before with like, what is our path forward? I think this will just help in while we actually even make stuff, it helps just get, just path cleared and, people's attention to, actually doing versus like just triaging these things. And yeah, so I think that getting that kind of stuff is really good. And I know like the scorecard that was proposed and all these things are nice, and having like the orgs was nice because that I know there's a lot of external people who care a lot about it because of course, it's once again just like everybody looks at it, there's a lot of people who use it. So that's why, was mentioned, that's why a lot of the modules I had removed the inactive people, because we actually had one of our former or now former TC members, actually his account got the password was leaked because something like scooped it out, or his token scooped out his NPM token. Thankfully I had already removed from being inactive, but stuff like that I think is like, that's that's the only reason like I'm the only one there, was not because I want to be the only one there, but just because people stare at it really hard, and it'd really be a whole thing if like, something happened to there and now I have to deal with it from no reason. So, I think some of the security stuff I think is definitely worth the investment into. So anyways.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think Dave, you said in the chat, should we have a like sub team? So what I think probably one of the very first big initiatives we should do after this is like once we like list out Jean, mentioned he'll open issues for all these, was to basically just set up groups who can go off and sort of operate independently and make sure this stuff happens. Like we don't need everybody to be involved, but like the couple of people who can drive it to completion, I think would be awesome. And if so anybody who wants to do that, I guess we'll open up that issue and volunteer yourselves in there. to help drive that forward. There's also the OpenJS security collab space, which is, to Doug, to your point, is actually discussing an idea of registering the foundation as a CNA, which would, for all the projects, which would give us effectively the ability to squash those CVEs officially, which would be spectacular. So there's some discussions happening on that in there if anybody wants to get involved.
I'm actually looking into for myself, for my own projects as well, for the same reason and with the same complaints Doug has. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it'd be, I think, super impactful for reducing the noise here. So we're over time, so I just want to recognize that there's a lot more things on this list. But if folks are good with just like calling it here, we can pick up this stuff in issues, I think, and start to get progress going.
Also, do we want to also turn around quickly and like make another like meeting proposal-ish and doodle to at least just get that ball rolling, so we don't that's the only thing else I'll add to it as well. I'm not saying, I don't know how soon the next one should be per se, but at least just getting the ball rolling, I think, will be a big help as well, so we can doodle it out and figure out things. I know we have two new TC members as well, so that will help weigh in on the doodles and things like that. So I know this one we wanted to make it quick and get going as fast as possible. I think it was a great success, and I really look forward to continuing that. I know we didn't get through it all. It's always hard to plan out how long to get through all the agenda items, but as long as we can keep making progress and talking through each of the things, I think that is awesome. And of course, there's plenty of stuff we can talk about in discussions in the Slack, offline, async, between the things. Things don't have to sit around waiting for another meeting officially or anything like that. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I think we have some really great open source folks that joined here, that are big names that I interacted with a lot on there and have these projects, and I'm just really made me happy to see some of the folks here and join and interested in seeing Express not just be on this basically like lifeline mode that has been in for at least 2 years. So it'll be awesome. I'm really happy. And as I told Wes, the biggest thing to me is getting this governance, getting it out. And I do not want to be the bottleneck of stuff. We want to get it spread through people. I do, in the back of my mind, had the same concerns that was expressed from sales. We do want to get people, who are doing stuff that actually use it, not just like, oh yeah, me and Wes talked about that. That was, I think, the problem we had back in the day, and I think that helped contribute to it fizzling out. So with that in mind, I think the folks here, I think, is like the exact audience realistically that I could have hoped for. So I'm excited.
Yeah, awesome. We're happy to help take some of that load off your shoulders too, because you have been doing a Herculean job the past few years, and very sadly, mostly on your own. So we're here to help, and we're I'm excited too, because look, I burnt out a bit there, but I feel a lot better now. Took some time off from some of the open source stuff, and I'm just excited that we are all getting the gang back together. So that's good.
Yeah, totally. And I just want to say thanks to you, Wes, for getting the ball rolling. I think it's been fantastic, and thank you for initiating this renaissance.
Thank you for the thanks, but also thanks, Jean, because it was literally Jean coming up to me in Spain, in Bilbao at that conference, and saying, what are we going to do? Let's, and like, I think it was his idea to like, let's go sit down for like an hour and like write out a concrete plan and let's propose it. And so it was, high five, team effort.
Totally.
And especially the French one.
The French wine really it's easy to get groups together when you bring a bottle of wine. So it was great. Okay, everybody, thank you. We're over time. We'll post a recording of this once we get it. I'm not exactly sure how to get it, but we'll figure that out. And then we'll also open up an issue for the
Next one.
next one. I'll also open up an issue with some notes. I took a couple on the side. If anybody else took any notes, post them in there and we'll try to compile a better list. And also the what's it called? The bot.
But
Yeah, where'd the bot go?
did he left like by himself?
May have left. So anyway, we'll try to also get the bot, which was doing a transcription and synopsis thing. So we'll try to post all that.
Yeah, I posted my lightweight minutes in the issue for the agenda here, just specifically because you need to record attendance and then the important decision that the group just made. So that stuff's in there. Otherwise, it's mostly lightweight stuff.
Yeah, we'll add a little bit more formality, hopefully, around it just for tracking's sake in the future. But sorry, I'm not great at that. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, everybody. Great to see y'all.
Thank
See
you.
you again soon.
Thank you. See you.
See you.